Hello, welcome to Anita the Pedagogue channel. Today in our lesson, we are going to study Anthony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. We are looking at the summary and analysis from Act 1 to 5. Let's begin with Act 1. In Act 1 of William Shakespeare's Anthony and Cleopatra, the playwright sets the stage for the unfolding drama and introduces the central characters, marking the beginning of the intricate political and romantic entanglements that characterize the play. The act opens with a conversation between Philo and Demetrius, two soldiers in the army of Mark Antony, discussing the general's infatuation with Cleopatra and his neglect of his Roman duties. This dialogue sets the tone for the portrayal of Antony's internal conflict between his love for Cleopatra and his obligation as a triumvir of Rome. In a scene, a soothsayer reveals to the maids of Cleopatra, Carmine and Iris, that they will outlive their mistress, but they ignore the relevance of this information, which foreshadows the fall of Cleopatra. Shakespeare introduces Cleopatra, the enigmatic and alluring queen of Egypt, through the eyes of Antony's follower Enobarbus, who expressed their concerns about the influence she holds over him. Cleopatra's introduction in Act 1 establishes her as a complex and captivating character, whose relationship with Antony becomes a focal in the entire story. Antony receives 4 messengers in sequence and learns that his wife, Fulvia, and his brother rebelled against Caesar. Then, that they were defeated. Then, that they were dead. Also, that Rome is under an increasing threat from Pompey as his pirates assert control on the seas. Antony acknowledges that his neglect of Rome has contributed to these disasters. He tells his loyal officer Enobarbus that he will do his duty, tear himself away from Cleopatra, and return to Rome. Cleopatra tries to get Antony to stay by pretending to be ill and accusing him of not loving her. He declares his love but insists on going to Rome. In Rome, Caesar criticizes Antony's weakness in choosing a life of rivalry with Cleopatra rather than of service to the state. When he and Lepidus receive urgent news of Pompey's increasing power, Caesar blames Antony's absence and wishes he was there to contribute his extensive military experience to the triumvirate strategy. Caesar and Lepidus make plans to wage battle against Pompey. Back in Egypt, Cleopatra thinks of Antony and longs for him to return. A messenger brings her a pearl from Antony and promises of gifts of whole kingdoms. Let's proceed to Act 2. In Act 2 of William Shakespeare's Anthony and Cleopatra, the playwright continues to develop the complex relationships and political dynamics central to the play. This act delves deeper into the themes of love, loyalty, ambition, and the interplay between personal desires and political responsibilities, offering a rich tapestry of human emotions and power struggles. In Sicily, Pompey feels certain of victory over a divided triumvirate. He is in control of the seas and Antony is in Egypt. Pompey is wary of Antony due to his military victories. Then he hears Antony is in Rome and he fears the triumvirate will unite. In Rome, the triumvirs meet. Caesar complains that Antony encouraged Fulvia to rebel, ignored his messengers, and broke his vow to give him military support. Antony, however, denies acting against Caesar and apologizes for his neglect. Lepidus keeps the peace. Antony agrees to marry Caesar's sister, Octavia, to cement the bond between Caesar and Antony. They agree to join their forces to fight against Pompey. Enobarbus describes the first meeting between Antony and Cleopatra, when she dramatically arrived by the river in her barge, enchanting Antony. He predicts Antony will never leave her. Meanwhile, a messenger tells Cleopatra the unwelcome news that he has married Octavia. She is so angry that she hits the messenger and threatens him with a knife. She demands to know what Octavia is like. In Italy, Caesar asks Pompey to accept peace terms. Pompey would have agreed their terms: rule over Sicily and Sardinia, paying tax to Rome, and ridding the sea of pirates, except he feels angry at Antony's ingratitude for his befriending of Antony's mother when she visited Sicily. So Antony thanks him. Pompey accepts peace terms and invites the triumvirs to dine on his ship. Enobarbus believes Antony will soon return to Cleopatra. The triumvirate enjoy Pompey's hospitality, while Menas secretly offers to kill them, therefore giving Pompey victory. But Pompey refuses, saying his honor won't let him agree to this, although he does wish Menas had killed them without telling him beforehand. Later, Menas deserts Pompey. The triumvirs departs. We move on to Act 3. Act 3 of William Shakespeare's Anthony and Cleopatra is a pivotal segment of the play, marked by escalating tensions, political maneuverings, and personal crises. The act delves deeper into the central character's internal conflicts and the ever-shifting dynamics of power and passion. When Antony and Octavia arrive in Athens, Antony complains to her about Caesar. He has broken the treaty to fight against Pompey and publicly criticized Antony, highlighting the political crisis and division. She begs for peace, offers to act as an intermediary, and departs for Rome, but Antony gets ready for war, blaming Caesar. A soldier, Eros, tells Enobarbus of Caesar's victory over Pompey using Lepidus' horses. Then Caesar accused Lepidus of treason and imprisoned him. Antony's fleet of ships is made ready for the battle against Caesar. In Rome, there is political tension as Caesar publicly censures Antony for awarding Cleopatra various kingdoms and complains that Antony is accusing him of not sharing the spoils of war, of keeping Antony's ships, and of imprisoning Lepidus. Caesar told Antony that Lepidus had become too cruel and offered to give Antony some of his winnings if Antony gave him half of his. But Maecenas says Antony will never agree. Octavia arrives, but Caesar is angry that Antony has disrespected her because her retinue is not grand enough for his sister. Octavia insists she came freely. Caesar informs her that Antony has returned to Cleopatra and tells her to be patient and see what happens. This shows Antony's internal conflicts and the dilemma of choosing love over his political duties. In his camp in Actium, Antony decides to fight Caesar at sea with Cleopatra's support. Antony's generals think this unwise, as he is stronger on land and they are concerned about Cleopatra's influence. Antony naively challenges Caesar to single combat, which he rejects. Then we see a dramatic and visually striking event where a sea battle ensues. Enobarbus grimly tells of how Cleopatra's ships turn and flee, followed by Antony. Their retreat shames Antony's soldiers and prompts Candidius to defect to Caesar, but Enobarbus remains loyal. The theme of love, betrayal, and political struggle is again evident as Antony feels ashamed and advises his troops to abandon him, to take his treasure and flee. Cleopatra begs forgiveness and Antony forgives her. He asks Caesar to let him live in Egypt with Cleopatra, who asks for her sons to be allowed to rule. Caesar refuses Antony's request but agrees to Cleopatra's if she turns Antony out of Egypt or kills him. On hearing Caesar's reply, Antony angrily challenges him again to a single combat. Caesar's messenger, Phidias, visits Cleopatra to say that Caesar will protect her if she gives up Antony. She seems amenable. Antony is furious, orders Phidias to be whipped, and accuses Cleopatra of betrayal. She swears her loyalty, and Antony accepts. He is set on a final battle with Caesar to the death. But Enobarbus believes defeat is inevitable, and Anthony has lost his judgment. We move on to Act 4 of William Shakespeare's Anthony and Cleopatra. This is a compelling segment that delves deeper into the characters' internal struggles, the consequences of their actions, and their inexorable march towards tragedy. The act unfolds against the backdrop of shifting alliances, political intrigue, and the characters' profound emotional turmoil. Caesar mocks Antony's challenge and confidently prepares his troops to fight. Anthony wants to regain honor in the coming fight with Caesar. He thanks his servants for their service and hints at his possible death. Enobarbus says this distresses the troops, so he cheers them up by promising victory. But soldiers hear strange music, an omen that the god Hercules is now abandoning Anthony. The next day, Eros and Cleopatra help Anthony put on his armor. He regrets fighting Caesar at sea earlier. He is shocked by Enobarbus' desertion, but tells Eros to send Enobarbus' possessions to him with gifts and friendly messages. Caesar orders Anthony to be captured alive and battle to begin. Enobarbus receives his treasure from Anthony. He feels so guilty at his treachery that he wants to die. Unexpectedly, Anthony's troops force Agrippa, Caesar's officer, to retreat with his men. Anthony and Scaurus are triumphant and boast of victory. Anthony thanks his men and greets Cleopatra, who promises him a suit of gold armor. They all celebrate. Caesar's camp is contrastingly quiet that night. Some watchmen are considering their defeat that day when they find a grief-stricken Enobarbus who dies in anguish. Enobarbus' death serves as a distressing reminder of the personal sacrifices and moral dilemmas that permeate the play, as well as the devastating consequences of disloyalty and broken trust. Throughout Act 4, the events gives the audience a sense of impending doom or tragedy. Anthony enters and says all is lost. Cleopatra has betrayed him and his fleet has surrendered. He vows to kill her in revenge. She locks herself in her monument and sends a message to Anthony that she has committed suicide, hoping he will calm down, but he is distraught when he hears of her death. He vows to join her and beg her pardon. He asks Eros to fulfill his pledge and kill him, but he is horrified and kills himself instead. Anthony then falls on his own sword but fails to kill himself outright. A messenger tells Anthony that Cleopatra is alive and he is taken to her, where he tragically dies in her arms. Cleopatra faints, then mourns, feeling she is nothing without him. She determines to follow the honorable Roman custom and kill herself. Act 5 of William Shakespeare's Anthony and Cleopatra serves as the dramatic conclusion to the play, bringing the central characters to the brink of their fate and culminating in a series of tragic events that underscore the themes of love, power, and mortality. Caesar hears that Anthony has honorably committed suicide. He then praises Anthony in tribute, referring to him as his brother and equal. He offers reassurance to Cleopatra's messenger that she will be treated with honor. He tells Proculius to go to her to prevent her suicide, because he wants to take her to Rome in his triumph. Proculius greets Cleopatra politely and asks for her requests. She is suspicious, but asks that her son rule Egypt. Proculius reassures her and tells her to ask Caesar. Soldiers guard her meanwhile. She draws a dagger but is disarmed. Dolabella sympathizes and confirms that Caesar intends to parade her in triumph through Rome. Caesar arrives and is courteous. She lists her wealth, but she has only included half. Caesar says he is her friend. She may keep her money and he will grant her requests. When he leaves, She tells her mate how he plots her humiliation, and so she plans her dignified and honorable suicide. A clown brings a basket of figs concealing poisonous snakes. She puts on her regal robes and crown. The apes bite her when she puts them to her breast, and she dies. Caesar returns, discovers her body, and formally laments her death. He honors her by arranging her burial next to Anthony, then considers the glory due to him as the one who defeated them. Shakespeare's masterful use of language and imagery in Act 5 heightens the emotional impact of the character's tragic ends, underscoring the play's exploration of mortality and the enduring legacy of love and passion. The act's evocative portrayal of the character's final moments creates a sense of profound catharsis as the themes of love, loyalty, and the inexorable passage of time converge in a poignant and unforgettable conclusion. This brings us to the end of our analysis of Acts 1 to Acts 5 of William Shakespeare's Anthony and Cleopatra. Check out the historical context, themes, and characterization for Anthony and Cleopatra in this playlist. Until I come your way again, keep learning and be the best version of yourself.